Good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our Spiritualism Lyceum evening. We have four. I'm counting myself in here. I've got three lovely guests and me, so that's a nice balance there. Our topic tonight is looking back, moving forwards, and we've got a great little panel tonight of people here. So, without further ado, the lovely Donna, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Hello, my name is Donna, as you heard and you can see. And I am from a little church in Thundersley, which is based in Essex. And I'm pleased to be on tonight. Thank you for inviting me, Lawrence.
Lovely. Thank you, Donna. And what's your role there in the church, my darling?
Well, I am one of the committee members. We don't have presidency roles, but I do help, and I guess I'm church secretary, something like that. But I do a bit of chairing and mucking and do a bit of everything, really. I'm not developed as a medium, so I don't help in that way, but
Right.
I help organise things, let's say that.
Yeah. Brilliant. Lovely. Reverend Nick, good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are we?
We are great.
Good. Well, I'm Nick. I'm from Littleport Christian Spiritualists, which is part of the new Christian Spiritualist Society. Littleport is the largest village in England by parish size, but actually it's quite tiny on the grand scale of things. But it's also the headquarters of the new Christian Spiritualist Society itself. And we broadcast every Thursday night here from Chateau Del Nick in Boudoir Del Brown.
Brilliant.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Reverend Nick. Last but by no means least, a lovely gentleman who has helped us out time and time again during the last year, and always a great pleasure to connect up, even in this virtual fashion. Ashley.
Great introduction for yourself. Really lovely. Welcome in. I'm pleased to be watching from the sidelines. Hello, folks, and hello, my good friend Lawrence. I'm Ashley Robinson. I'm a spiritualist medium in South London. My home church is Wimbledon Spiritualist Church, and our sister little church is Hatbridge near at Carshalton. And I'm lucky enough to have been brought up in spiritualism, always said. My mum and dad are the ministers of religion at Wimbledon and Hatbridge, and presidents of the church. And I assist in any way, shape or form. Historically, that's been anything that required any type of power devices, mobile phones, laptops. And recently, we've, like all of us, been catapulted into that world of doing things as smart as possible. So yeah, communications and engagement, a little bit of organisation. Wimbledon has a lovely history that goes back to the year I was born in 1982, in that my grandfather, who was president at the time, founded Life After Death Promotions there with a lady called Doris Stokes, Gordon Higginson and Jessie Nason. And they set themselves a mission to continue to take spiritualism out of the churches and out to the people, to get the people back to the churches ultimately, but to share their knowledge of life after death and share the truths of spiritualism. So it's a really lovely little place, and often a bit of a lighthouse for people in London.
Wonderful. Wow. And you do it injustice, Ashley, because I have visited your church several times, and it's not a little place, it's huge. It's absolutely wonderful. It's a great space and a
great bit of space here. Just celebrating 100 years of spiritualism in Wimbledon now. Our founder, Mr. Richard Arthur Bush, took a mission of spiritualism to Wimbledon back in 1913, and he used to use a Ouija board on his own and channel the different spirits, but was compelled to take this mission to spiritualism. He used to operate in a little barn, and there was a little room above the stables where he first operated, and someone on the spirit board said, "You've got to buy this land on Hartfield Road, it's going to be a church." And he was able to build that, I think, in 1916. So yeah, very lucky. Great bit of space in Wimbledon.
Yeah, how interesting. Lovely. You never knew
Lovely,
that. Thank you. Yeah.
We wish he'd brought the Irish club next door, not only because they have a great variety of drinks and food, but it would have been a nice bit of land for car parking.
Yes.
Definitely. So, without further ado, we'll move on to tonight's topic. You know, we are where we are at this time. None of us wish to be here, but we are, so we look for the best in things is always my motto. But if we go back and look at the timeline, really, with some of these lockdowns, just to get like the historical side to us, back in the 16th of March 2020, it was the first real inkling that things were going to go horribly wrong. The announcement was made to curtail all non-essential travel and be careful, and that was quickly followed up on the 23rd of March for the lockdown actually being announced for the UK. But I remember back earlier than that and thinking things just sort of like drifted away. They fell apart a wee bit. I don't know if anybody else on the panel found that, because I do remember our last healing circle here. None of the healers turned up on that night, and it was just that sort of era, it was that energy going on, that people just suddenly weren't there, they weren't coming back out. And this is way before the 16th of March, because I think everybody was going, yeah, this is going to be difficult, So Donna, my darling, you know, what were your thoughts around that time, pre and just on the lockdown?
Yeah, I think there was definitely a shift in energy for sure. I think even like from like January onwards, and lots of people were getting sick. I know our family had a real big illness. We lingered a while. So I think there was definitely we probably did actually have COVID at the time, but we just didn't realise it. Yes, there definitely was a shift in the energy around that time. And kind of as the talk started, people started talking about it, reading the news and hearing about this thing that was coming. There was definitely a bit of panic, I think. And a lot of our congregation at the time were older. And obviously more worried than some of us, maybe. But yeah, it almost felt like a weird kind of energy cleanse that's kind of run through the church, through the whole lockdown, which is really strange. And I haven't quite got to a point where I understand really what has happened yet. But definitely there's been a lot of change.
Yeah. Reverend Nick, sir.
Well, do you know what? You've reminded me actually of a conversation that I had on New Year's Eve 2019. 2019.
Yeah.
And I was talking to someone and they said, I've got a really, really good feeling about 2020. 2020 is going to be amazing. Things are going to change. As soon as that clock ticks over to midnight, the world is going to change. And I went, yeah, I feel that it's going to change. And she said, it's going to be for the better. I know it. And I stood there and I just linked in and I just asked my main coordinator, Gordon, I said, what do you reckon? And he just glared at me. And I went, you're not agreeing, are you? And he went, just wait. It's going to change for sure. And that was all I got. Absolutely all I got. And I remember we just had a workshop at the end of February, because we had a Sunday workshop every month at the end of the month. And I'd just we went for a weekend, me and my partner went for a weekend to Scotland. And we just got back as everything was starting to kick off in February and people were talking about it. And we was in Stansted and it was virtually deserted. And there was this one guy walking around really with this old-fashioned 1940s gas mask on. And everyone was looking at him funny. And I look back now thinking, now who's laughing? But we got back and my partner actually contracted COVID. And right, okay, so I'm locked down. So I missed a service. And then the following week is when it all started the talking about, oh, we're going to be locked down, all of this is going to change. And nobody was concerned really on the grand scheme. I think people weren't sort of really having the sink in because they'd never been through something quite like this, it really wasn't sinking in enough. We were quite lucky at Littleport in the sense that the jump to online was quite easy for us. We'd been doing bits and pieces online every week for like years, but nothing on the scale of this. But I think really the biggest feeling I had was that people weren't taking it in enough. You know, as far as the people that I was around as spiritualists, we were like looking at each other and not really talking about it, the truth be told. It was all just silent, knowing stares. But generally, people really weren't realizing just how bad it was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. And Ash, you've got a very interesting perspective there, coming from where you do in such, you're virtually in the centre of London there.
It's been a strange old year. I in a way look forward to the idea of talking to my hopeful grandkids one day and talking about the year it was illegal to kiss people that weren't in your house. What a strange year. It definitely helped you to sort of understand more about where you were blessed. And one of my old childhood heroes, Mr. Motivator, I used to watch him a lot with my nan on GMTV with exercise. I caught him one day doing some exercise, and he was saying, you know what, if you're feeling a bit down, a bit miserable, do you have somewhere to live? You're blessed. Do you have, your immediate health? You're blessed. Do you have some money coming in and a job? Do you have some food in your fridge? And I was thinking, when you kind of focus on the things that really matter, it was easier to not sweat that small stuff. But the year started odd for us anyway. My grandfather, who's had a dodgy chest most of his life, suffering with asbestos or asbestitis, he used to unload sacks of the stuff at Waterloo, and they used to give him a handkerchief as a bit of PPE to stick over his mouth, and extra money for unloading these sacks of asbestos. But he ended up coming down with a mystery virus while he was in hospital, because he had become a bit dehydrated one day. He had gone outside his house, slipped, tripped and fallen over, was getting better in hospital, suddenly came down with this mystery virus, and they said he died of a pneumonia type condition. I look back now and I think it probably was COVID-19. At the time, it felt like COVID-19 was happening to other people in the world. Even in the UK, it felt like it was happening up north. And actually, the first probably 6 months of the pandemic, it felt a little bit like it was happening to other people, because I didn't know anyone who had got COVID. But we'd been preparing just after my granddad's funeral for a spiritual and psychic weekend retreat in Bournemouth. It's called Spirit Seeker. My granddad's been doing them for about the last sort of 35 years. And I remember everyone saying, oh, is it still going to go ahead? Absolutely fine. And we did get away. It was the first weekend in March. And the whole time, nothing had really changed yet. But there was this whole thing of, should we be getting, provisions in? Should we be wearing masks? And of course, 130 odd spiritualists all asking each other, your guides got anything from your guides? And such contradictions from all these different like-minded people. Lots of people saying, oh, it's man-made and it'll be gone, and we'll get over this, and our leaders are sort of being advised. But even at the time, I felt relatively confident that we're going to be okay. I've got a job in the civil service around continuity and contingency planning, and we're successfully fed off things like Ebola and SARS and things like that. And I thought this would be fine. It will just sort of blow over. But all of a sudden, it was here. It's my son's birthday on the 28th of March. I remember cancelling his sort of soft play birthday party a couple of days beforehand, and thinking, we'll probably just do your birthday next month, mate. It will be okay. And saying to my mum and dad, we don't have to close the churches yet, but actually the average age of our Sunday Divine Service congregation, I love them to bits, but there's some walking wounded there, there's some really vulnerable people, and it was like, should we be letting them come out at this time? And we spent a bit of time trying to think about other things. We'd done a few sort of cheeky live streams on Facebook and not really known what we were doing. We'd never done any mediumship online, and I'd filmed occasionally mediums doing mediumship in the church, but never to an online community. Seeds were planted, and then we all sort of came together, and what a wonderful bit of spiritualism, where there were so many people saying, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And I've managed to do this. Do you want to learn from it? So I've said to you a few times, Larry, you're an ambassador for spiritualism in many ways, but I think from a tech point of view, you're often a role model as well. You were showing people the art of the possible, and actually at a time where we needed to engage and keep in touch with people, you showed it was possible, and it encouraged us. Certainly, we were very lucky. Spiritual Psychics TV, a great partner for us, helping us with our sort of streaming services as well. But yeah, strange start.
Yes, indeed, and thank you, because you just reminded me. I did come over and see you at Spirit Seekers. I was very fortunate just to be able to drop in and thoroughly enjoyed that. And I'd forgotten, actually, it was in that time because I was going somewhere and it was all busy. You'd all just been evacuated because the fire alarm had gone off in the middle of the night. Yeah. So and, you know...
Terrible spiritualist. We didn't see the fire alarm coming or the pandemic.
I know. Outrageous, yeah.
So much for a psychic weekend.
Anyone wants a refund, just form an orderly queue. But yeah, but when we actually went into that lockdown, you know, in the energy of what we do, us, all four of us here with our churches, I know myself, it was just bizarre to, you know, the first Sunday of not opening up. Where we live here, behind is a big surface car park for the town centre, and you only ever see it empty on like Christmas Day, and it was empty, and it was brilliant weather. If you remember when they brought lockdown in, suddenly, you know, we were in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
But the actual impact, and thank you very much for those very kind words, Ashley. It is appreciated. It was that like impact of what are we going to do? You know, we've got to do something because all of us are involved in our own churches or centres in our own ways. But I would very, without any fear of reservation, say we're all passionate about what we do. It's part of us. Mm. You know, we have this emotional link to wherever we represent, you know, Thundersley, Littleport, Wimbledon, Poole. And that I found the hardest. Because it was that emotional side that was just suddenly not there. Mm. So, yeah, very interesting. But the advent of the online, and all full credit, was Ashley down in Weymouth. She called me on this platform, StreamYard, saying, what do you think? And I said, give it a go. So we put out this broadcast, and I resent it the other day, and it was really funny. Oh, there we go. The supplies are in. Yeah, and it was just sort of like started from there. But we went through from the 23rd of March right the way through till March, April, May... Quite a long time before we were allowed to reopen because we've had these like little breaks in these bizarre lockdowns. So when we released sort of like the first lockdown, how did we feel then with our churches and centres about reopening or not be the case? Yeah. Anybody?
I felt a lot of pressure to reopen because, I mean, we're the only ones in our area, I think. Someone might say in the comments, no, you weren't. But I think we were the only ones in our area that had gone online. And we were just kind of driving along. We'd sent the message out, you know, we know church has got to close. We've got to close the doors. This is weird. The church has never been closed. We've even run a Sunday service before with the electrics have gone. You know, and they've still continued the service under candlelight. You know, the divine service, it sticks. You even with the snow. You know, so it was really, really an eerie feeling having to close. And Rob just said we're driving along. I don't know where we were going. I just remember being in the car, and Rob said, "Well, we could always take the service online." And my brain's like, "Well, how the hell are we going to do that?" And Rob's always really optimistic, so I was quite lucky, really, that he thinks around stuff, and he's quite technical minded. So we got home, we did a bit of research, and he found BeLive we use, not StreamYard. We've got StreamYard now for other bits, but we were using BeLive, and we thought, well, a medium's even going to want to do this? Like, this is a very big ask, you know. How would they work? We can't pull people up onto the screen. They'll be working from the comments, right? Is this even, you know, is this a thing? So when we went live on the first one, the medium that we had on was Lainey Bain, very open-minded. We were really lucky. And she sent us a text message partway through the service. She was just going to do a spiritual address. We were going to do the healing, because we can do that. Distant healing works, right? And she sent a message, said, I'm getting links. I'm getting links from people in the comments. So we said, all right, we'll put you on. We'll give it a go. So she started to give messages to people. And I think for about the first 4 or 5 months, nearly every medium that we asked to do it, it was the first time they'd ever worked in this way. And now there's so many doing this. It is wonderful. You've got some that have avoided it completely, which is fine. But you've got, you know, others that have just expanded and grown. They're doing their own thing now. It's wonderful. But I can't remember where I was going. I knew this would happen. I always go around the houses. I have to tell the full story and then forgot where I was going. But
we were talking about reopening after the first lockdown, and you said something which really resonated with me about I wasn't sure. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, wasn't sure at all. It's such a new way of working, and it really gave us. Of course, we believe spirit. Of course, we believe that spirit can, because they just can. But to actually rely on you receiving the link from the name on the screen, and sometimes you
just freeze.
Yeah, they freeze and or they disappear. They don't come back on, and you're giving them a message and they don't answer at all. They've dropped out. They were bored. But it proved, didn't it, in the most wonderful way, how that spirit link, that truth, you know, it really is a thing. You know, you can't read body language. You're not making this up. You're not, you know, looking at the person and watching for their reaction and then giving them what you think they're looking to hear, because that's not possible. You're just relying on spirit. And I think that it just blew all of our minds, even though we knew, it blew our minds. Well, it did mine.
Yeah, no,
wonderful.
Very, very true. Because it was the 29th of June, the regional restrictions then started coming into play. And actually, I found that down here in Poole more difficult to manage than I did the full-scale lockdown.
Same.
Because we ended up, the BCP area, we were in like tier 3 and surrounded by tier 2. So none of my mediums could actually come in and see us because verboten, you know? So in that time, you know, how were you finding things with your physical churches? Did you decide to reopen or just hang fire a bit, or what did we do?
We couldn't actually reopen at all. We rent the local village hall, and they were concerned about, because it's an old building and there was only one entrance and one exit, front and rear. You had to walk about 1/4 mile to get from the front to the back. So they spent a long time getting ready to reopen, to the extent that the week that we were due to reopen, we were locked down again. So we've not actually been back into the church physically since last February. And it's been so strange, because I live just round the back of the village hall where we have our services, where we all used to get together and meet up. And it was just, we've tried to focus on bringing people together. We've had thoughts about, let's have something in someone's garden. Like yourself, Donna, we're the only one in our area that's actually streaming. In the Elian, Littleport and Prickwillow area, there's actually 4 churches. I don't want to miss anybody out. Yeah, 4 churches. And we're the only ones that are streaming it. I suppose it was a natural progression for us because we had quite a few members that were old and poorly and bedridden. My deacon and our medium secretary, Wendy, she'd been basically housebound for about off and on 5 years, which is why we started broadcasting the first part of the service, just so she could be included. But it's like you said, as soon as you come to the mediumship, it's like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get this to? We opted for using the raffle to raffle out the mediumship. So we bring the recipient up on the screen, send them a link to get them into the studio. So they actually get picked like 2 or 3 hours before the service, and I send them the link. 9 times out of 10 they can't make it, so I'm getting someone else to come on about 5 or 10 minutes before the service. Reverend Lynn couldn't always make it to the services on a Thursday night, because we meet on a Thursday night as well, which was the same as the clap. The service was, we included that as part of the service, which was really quite strange, because I'm stopping the service to actually get the camera, hang it out of my bedroom window so people can hear the pots and the pans and the clapping from the kids over the road. But Lynn couldn't make it on Thursday nights due to her physical restrictions. So it's actually brought us all a lot closer together, you know, especially as a society, because I have involvement with all of the other churches that are in the New Christian Spiritualist Society, doing what I do for Lynn. And it's that constant swapping of ideas and everything. But some of them have got back into their holes. But for me personally, it's actually increased my ability to serve spirit. I run a petrol station for a living. So, you know, petroleum spirit by day, Holy Spirit by night, my boss used to say. Apart from when I'm doing the late shift and then we swap it over. But I've been out serving churches more, you know, seeing different ways of working, actually. In particular, the first church that I served was actually down at Weymouth, which is where we nicked our healing candle video from that we use, because we share as spiritualists and share the ideas, you know. But I served Ashley, and then I've served various different churches. A, that I would never have served because of the distance, but B, I've been able to serve more because I work anywhere between 40 and 60 hours a week running the station. I've got tonight, I've got obviously tomorrow night, the church service. I'm serving somewhere else on Saturday. I'd have never been able to have fitted all that in, but I can literally, instead of spending another hour after the service washing up, although we did deal with that with paper cups, we do recycle, but I can literally close the service and jump straight into bed. So for me, it's given me the opportunity to expand my frame of reference, not being able to get back into the church. You know, so it's really, really weird that not being able to serve in my own church has given me the ability to actually see what everyone else is doing in the real world. Right. You know, but we would have loved to have gone back. We really, really would have done, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, no, I fully get that. And you do raise a very pertinent point here. We're seeing a lot of churches up and down the country, because they are not of their own premises. They are restricted, you know, and I have actually seen a few little pointed online comments, and it's sort of like the response was, we're not allowed to open because the community centre isn't open. It's not us. Yeah. You know, our premises aren't there. Ashley, sir, when they were bringing in all these different tiers...
I mean... I think a lot of it was people taking a chance, wasn't it? I loved what you said, Donna, about, you know, understanding it was okay to take a risk. Let spirit do the work. And, you know, I'll be honest, I'm developing as a medium around 20 years now, and I'd never done it before like that in terms of the mediumship. And when I was suggesting we should do it, it seemed so easy for me, someone who used social media a lot. And then there was this sort of tumbleweed moment of volunteers, and I was like, well, I'll do it. You know, and a sort of quick chat with my guide saying, how's this all going to work? And we started streaming on the 29th of March. We were really lucky in that we just had broadband installed at the church at Wimbledon. So we started to have some stuff there, and we had an existing relationship with Richard James, who's the producer at Spiritual Psychics TV, and he'd been streaming mediumship at different sort of guises, and I'd said, what about a divine service? And he said, well, I haven't got one of them, and we sort of pitched the idea to him, and he produced it behind the scenes for us, which gave us a really quite professional sort of polished product with a bunch of sort of amateurs behind the scenes at Wimbledon, all just trying to do what we were good at, where we could be professional and sort of disciplined. And I was looking at that video the other day and it came up and I couldn't believe that was a year ago, but a lot of it felt like a stopgap. We just need to get through the next couple of weeks, and we also need to get all the little old ladies and old boys onto Facebook and YouTube and work out how they can get it. And there was this brilliant network. I mean, there was a lady who didn't even own a mobile phone, and she used to use her landline to ring her friend, who would put YouTube on the telly and then put the phone up to the speaker so she could hear the divine service. And it was incredible, people looking out for each other. Everyone's suddenly downloading WhatsApp, and we brought this little church family WhatsApp group together, which I must admit, I love everyone on there. I have to mute it during the day because everyone personally greets each other, hello and good morning, in a way closer than what we were pre-pandemic. But once the green light was like, we can open up, of course, the civil service they produced all this guidance, and I read it all, and it just fell in the too difficult tray for lots of people. I remember my mum and dad, who were both retired civil servants, like, we need a civil servant to understand this, or a sort of teenager. Hackbridge for us, we weren't going to be able to do it. We tried to measure 2 meters of space, and it's such a beautiful but small church. We would have got half a dozen chairs in there, and there was no internet there. We couldn't stream, so we sort of this idea of bringing it together. Now at Wimbledon, I managed to get 30 chairs spread out at 2 meters. I remember my dad getting a sort of a garden cane, measuring it out to 2 meters and cutting it. We walked around, trying to measure out the spaces for sort of chairs and what works well and one-way systems. And I'm quickly downloading free images and arrows and doing a risk assessment for the church to sort of go ahead. And it felt brilliant when we were all there. We thought, wow, we can have 30 people. And then it was like, who wants to come to church? And like, you mean go outside? Yeah. And there was this real sort of anxiety. I mean, there were people desperate to come. There were others that were like, I'm not so sure that I want to leave, and I feel quite safe at home. And there were lots of people cocooning and isolating and shielding and all that sort of stuff. So there was this thing of my dad saying, well, we can't now stop streaming. And on Facebook, you start to get false numbers, don't you? And it looked like thousands of people were watching us on the first few days. You realise that was thousands of people that probably scrolled past. We had suddenly this nucleus of a few hundred. And my dad was like, we didn't have this at Wimbledon on a Sunday morning. We had 30, 40 people. It was only a special night of clairvoyance, so we had 200. So it was like, we're going to have to do both. And then again, it was this thing for mediums. First thing is, do you go to Wimbledon? And if you do, how do you give messages to people online and in the congregation? So again, it was about volunteering going first. It's like, well, I'll ask Spirit to do it 50-50 and we'll see what happens. And I think it was all about just being prepared to sort of take a risk, know that Spirit was going to be the purest thing, that was going to come through. The evidence that you were trying to put forward was going to get through. And then exactly what you just said there, Nick, it's suddenly this opportunity. You've got people from Manchester saying, I'm never going to get down to London to serve your church. Are you looking for any volunteers? And you're like, well, yeah. Do you have a church? Do you want me to serve you? And all of a sudden, there was this like old-fashioned horse trading going on. And I know that we could have probably another show dedicated to what people might charge in terms of fees to attend churches. But the vast majority of people that don't have their own sort of TV show on Sky probably do it to get there, don't they? Some petrol or a travel card. And I think the vast majority of people that call themselves spiritualist mediums do that. And actually, it wasn't costing them anything, and they were serving and giving more service than they've ever done before. And it was an incredible thing for spiritualism. There's a lady called Veronica Jenkins, you've probably all come across, and she started a page where she would bookmark different churches. You look at that post now, there's hundreds. There's hundreds of UK spiritualist churches. If you've got nothing to do, you go on there. You've got the choice of like so much different content. And I mean, she's an incredible woman. I think her energy for listing all the people, working out what time it starts, what the link is, it's an incredible thing. And again, this is someone that's doing this. It's a hobby. These aren't paid people. These are spiritualists that just want to get the message out that there is a life after life. and actually all these brilliant inspirational messages that have been coming through the addresses. It's one of the things that I know has got me through. And you read some of those comments afterwards, and you've got people suffering with severe mental health and anxiety. And sometimes they would have come into the church and spoke about and got healing, but there are people literally saying that their local spiritualist church or centre has saved their life. They've had that community where they could go to, they could ask for healing. They found a community that gave love unconditionally, and I think it's amazing. I think it's one of the greatest things to come out of the pandemic is this kind of like reintegration of spiritualism and people wanting to give this service.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I was thinking today, it's like we've discovered this new world. We have this whole new world in which to sort of like populate and explore with it on the for spiritualism becoming online. We did a service here at Poole, and we had 5 different speakers on. I just thought, I'm going to play. I want to see if this will work. And we had a speaker on from Scotland, Ireland, Denmark, UK, Menorca, and Australia, and it worked. Yeah. We had a lovely, and I'm just like, wow. We would never, ever, ever have thought of doing that. But here it is, and it's happening. And more to the point, it's working.
Yeah. COVID-19 was like a spiritualist crowbar to loosen a few people up, wasn't it, and get them doing different things.
Definitely.
And I don't mean any disrespect to people that have suffered as a result of COVID. No. My wife's uncle's been on a life support machine. We're pleased to say that he's doing well. I know that people have lost their lives during this time, but laughter is important as well, isn't it? Yes. I like to work in an uplifting way. I like to make people laugh, and laughter is almost as powerful as love. And put a smile on people's face, and do it with the right intentions.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I said at the beginning, we are in this time, and we can do one or two things. We can run away and hide under the duvet and never come out again, or just go, okay, how am I going to work with this? And laughter, as you know, with me, I have got no sense of humour, have I, Donna?
Oh, you're the funniest guy in spiritualism, Laurie.
But yeah, laughter has got us through a lot of this, a hell of a lot of this,
and the opportunity to do different things. Philosophy. I think that if I'd advertised an evening of philosophy at Wimbledon Church, I don't know, even if we'd done it for free, if people would have turned up in numbers. But I remember saying to Richard James, I said, I've been wanting to do this inspired speech about what and who is God. Any chance you'd broadcast that? And he was like, well, give it a go. And I was like, if I get half a dozen people, it'll be lovely. And I actually now host my own Spiritualist Philosophy show every 2 weeks on YouTube. And it's incredible to actually talk to people without giving messages, and people are still interested in learning sort of further in their life.
I totally agree about the philosophy has always been a passion of mine. If mediumship is the center around spiritualism that brings people in, philosophy is what makes mediumship spiritualism. And I've always been, people kick me because they always say how many donkeys in Littleport have got the hind legs left, because I can talk them off. But for me, it is the philosophy that has been given the real boon during the pandemic, because, as you say, you get people actually interested and listening to it. And it's also shown people, it's not just the fact that the philosophy is getting out there, it's showing people that we are not what people told them that spiritualists are, that there is a moral and philosophical center to what we do, that we are genuinely caring people, not charlatans who just want to con people for a quick buck. It's like you say, people not charging certainly over the internet because it's all of the mileage. A couple of months back, we had Matthew Stapley from Canada service. I dread to think what his mileage would have been all the way to Littleport. It was hard enough working out what time he was supposed to be joining for him because of the time zone difference. But, it is the philosophy that I think has been the real victory for our way of life, because not only do And we know from the last time we spoke, Laurie, how I feel about that. I hate that word. I hate that word with a passion. And it shows that we are, as I was, because you was talking about the ministry earlier, and I was reminded by something a medium once said to me. I was 18 years old. I'd been in the way of life for about a year. It was like 6 months ago. And she said, "Where do you want to go with spiritualism, Nick?" And I said, "Well, I'm happy working on the committee here at the church, and one day might be president, maybe even a minister one day." And she said, "But Nick, working in a spiritualist church, you already minister to people." And that always stuck with me, because we do minister to people, be it as a member of the circuit, going around giving spiritualist mediumship out to those that are receiving you, be it someone in a church sitting in a corner giving healing, be it someone sitting on the phone for 2 hours in the middle of the night to someone who's ready to end it, bringing them down. That is the ministry of spiritualism. And it is what we are. It is a ministry. It is a religion. It is a way of life. But it is so important to show people that we are not just show turners. And, I've seen a lot of people accused of it, and I know full well they're not, because they do everything I've just described. And, to actually be able to have people turn up at a church secretly. And that's the thing, the amount of people that have come to a spiritualist church this last year who wouldn't have normally come, and realize that we are actually a force for good in the world, and a strength and a passion, and not just these, weirdos that meet up in a village hall and sit and go, and hope for a toffee crisp to come falling out of a lampshade. It's been amazing. And the response for people who've said, "I wouldn't have normally come, but I think I might pay you a visit when you open back up." For me, that's taking the word of spirit out into the world and never giving an inch. And we have done that job massively this last year. Everyone has.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that brings us very nicely into when we're talking about the philosophy and the different aspects of spiritualism. This is one of the things that I've had my greatest joy out of these online works, is the number of speakers, people willing to give up their time, and some really wonderful people, just saying, "Yeah, I'll do that, I'll talk on that." And you just sit there, and it's just brought in this whole new world again of different understanding. I've found that I drift off into shamanism a little bit at a time. I've sat there doing a meditation, it suddenly turned shamanic on me. Well, last year I wouldn't have known what that was. But this time I was just like, "Oh, okay, we're going down that route. Oh, all right, let's have a go," But going forwards now, looking at, we are starting to return. The hubbub of life is starting to beat once again. What are our thoughts? What's our aspirations? What's our fears, if they're not too personal, about reopening more and more? Donna, put you on the spot.
No, that's cool. It's like a balance thing going on. I love the idea of reopening, obviously connecting that energy transference of being in someone else's space. You can't get that online. Yes, we can send love, we can send our healing energy out. We know that works. I feel like I do feel to a point that we are together in this chat now. We're not in separate rooms, although we are. So, of course, you do connect. We connect in this way, but there's nothing more special, I think, than actually being in someone's actual auric energy. So I have missed that, and obviously we have to be quite far away. I do this practice of almost like expanding my energy out as much as I can when I go into church, because I know I can't get that close to people. But I hope that they can feel that love and that vibe that I'm giving out regardless. like the hugs. Miss the hugs. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
But I think we've got to hold both. I think that's what we've learned here. So we've all experimented, and I know that Nick, you said that you were doing a little bit online anyway. How lovely is that you had, you know, a lady that was important to you, and you felt you needed to put that out. That's wonderful. But we've realised how important and well received these are. I've just had a comment from one of our congregation members that isn't necessarily one from church, but she's one of our new online congregation members, and she's asking me a question in the comments tonight. And that's wonderful. But we need to be able to open the church back up and hold our community around the church, all those people that actually were the people we were thinking about when we brought this service online. We were thinking about Stan up the road. We were thinking about Margaret. We were thinking about, you know, the people that came into the church. And it's really interesting, actually, because it took them a while to pick it up. They're only just kind of looking at it now. The people we were reaching were other people out there. So we need to do a bit of both. And we've got to somehow be a bit more available, because I can't be in church and deliver a service or a coffee morning there and also be on the online coffee morning. So you've got to rely on the bigger team, if you like. But that's kind of where we're thinking. We're going to try and keep the divine service online. We're going to try and keep the coffee morning online, keep doing a few sofa chats like we're doing now. But hopefully, with everybody pulling together in the little group, we can manage that, because that's my fear, Laurie. That's my fear, is that I won't be able to manage the online stuff as well once we're back in church all the time. For example, the healing segment, we started to do the healing. I did it for a couple of months. The thought came in. I thought, okay, I've got to do that then. And only half an hour on a Thursday. We send the healing out as a group then. So I started to stream that live so that everyone else can be a part of it and help us send the healing out. But then when we started to go back into church and meet on a Thursday night with the actual healing group, the physical healing group, I had to say, I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to stop doing that. But I know that people have really enjoyed it, so I feel guilty. It's that.
Yeah. But one of the beauties with this online presence now, I've started serving a few churches locally as we're reopening up in the area, because everybody's playing close to home still at the moment before we start spreading out. And I've had 2 events now online hosted by other people. In fact, one of them was hosted by the lovely Jack out in Denmark. He took our divine service on a Sunday morning while I was serving another church. And I'm just like, I love this. And meeting...
Did you find it a bit weird, though?
I didn't, actually.
Like, it's almost your baby. So were you worried?
No. Do you know what? Because the people that I've got, we got a lovely couple that were helping, and their first night hosting was testing ground, shall we say. As in, they locked themselves out of the Zoom room. Everybody else was in there, and they were the hosts, and they couldn't get back in. Oops. But do you know what? We're going to drop balls here and there.
Yeah.
And it's how you recover. We've got to try.
I think it's one of the harder things, and I have a fantastic volunteer team at Wimbledon. They're just not that au fait with technology, and for a long time it becomes a one-person band. And you try and get other people doing things, and we've tried to make the church as easy as possible. We've got 2 TVs up on the wall which can show the stream. We've got a camera on the lectern. We've put mics up at the lectern and mics in the audience so people could even sort of be heard sort of during Zoom calls. But people, my dad included, my dad's done now hundreds of online services, but he's developed a real hatred of Zoom because it's been wicked to him a few times, and it puts people off. It really puts people off. And there's this idea of, for the last year, my mum and dad have pretty much chaired every single service, and I've sort of been behind the scenes and pushed it forward. My mum and dad went away in that bleak summer where we suddenly got out to eat out to help out, and we got away. They managed to get away with my sister, and I ran the service. But it's like we've got this whole team of volunteers. We used to have a different chairperson every week, and we want them to be able to turn on the computer and log into Skype and connect to the studio in Portsmouth. We want people to be able to sort of host Zoom, and some people are very scared about it. And while we've got this ambition to keep doing what we're doing, there's a lovely lady, she might even be watching tonight, Shirley Monaco. She's in her 80s now. She's a wonderful medium, and one of her real strengths is picking up on the energy of objects. You know, she's done it for a very long time. You'd give her a ring or a piece of jewelry, and she picks up on the energy of that and gives a message. And she said to me sort of the other day, she doesn't know if she's ever going to be able to work again at Wimbledon. And I said, well, don't think like that. She goes, well, I don't want to get out on the lectern and be on Skype, and I don't want to be on sort of Zoom, and if I can't touch people's objects. And I said, we'll find a way. For everyone that wants to work, there is a way to do this. Even if we open the service half an hour before it goes online and you give those messages to the people in the church, you know, there'll always be a way. But I think it's recognizing that it's anxiety about people coming back to some sort of normality, and then the anxiety of the technology. Because, you know, I mean, I studied computer science at school when I was 18. And even then, I said to my parents sometimes, you know, how did you fix it? It's like, I don't know. With computers, you just have to keep trying. You turn it on or off again. You unplug it, you plug it back in. It's almost like you just need resilience to keep trying. There's no obvious reason why your webcam suddenly stops working, or there's a weird echo on the mic. We're also very lucky. There's a guy called Kieran Edmonds. I'll shout out. He was involved in the entertainment industry, the events industry, which was very quiet this year. He's married to a lovely lady called Daniel Edmonds, who's one of the spiritualist healers in our church, and he gave up dozens and dozens of hours late at night at the church on his own, hanging up cameras and microphones and plugging in stuff and getting us bits of Ethernet cable out the back of skips and stuff that were thrown away. And I think, again, and I know that our church wouldn't have been the only one like that. There would have been stories of like that all up and down the country where someone said, oh, I've got an old computer or a webcam, and we'll find a way of people streaming on their mobile phones. You know, the best one I saw was an iPhone gaffer taped to a microphone stand and just stuck in front of them. It works perfect, doesn't it? It worked exactly. They couldn't read the comments from 20 foot away, but the people could see the medium. That was the important thing.
I mean, it's going to be strange for us, not only having not been back for a year, but when we were first streaming, my dad, bless him, he got a piece of wood about that big and cut a groove into it that I could rest my phone in, and that's how we streamed. And that's never going to happen now. And of course, not having our own place, it's got to be transportable, detachable, small, compact, storable, easy to do, but has to be completely set up and completely dismantled every day. Me and Tony Swindles were talking probably around about this time last year about ideas, and we've got the idea of having a projector screen and having a projector, and you know, we're working on that kind of thing. But it's like Lynn, she'll be wanting to carry on doing her speaking every week, which is often colourful and quite frequently extended, like a telescope. But people still love it, and we'll still want to have that. There's no way we're not going to do this, and we have to merge the two. I think the hardest thing for going back for Littleport is the fact that the people that we've lost aren't going to be there. I mean, Wendy, my medium secretary and my deacon, bless her, she passed last September. It was actually her birthday yesterday, and she came through on Thursday night, which was great. I lost my dad in January. He was our treasurer and the tea maker. You know, the kitchen's going to be the biggest issue. It's going to be hard not having those people, but we can't not go back. I mean, Mum, bless her, she stepped forward and she's now doing the medium secretary job. She's even managed to figure out how to use a tablet. She's probably watching right now, even though she probably hasn't remembered how to make a comment. But, you know, but she's still part of it. She's come on and she's had a reading. I know it's going to be difficult for her because Mum and Dad used to go in and open up. So it's going to be a a bigger window. I mean, we've had people move away. We've had so many changes of people. I think that's going to be the hard part, the people we've lost, because so many people have lost so many people. But it's just the irony that, and I don't mean this in any negative or difficult way, but the irony of how many people have lost people this last year. There is going to be no doubt that when the doors open, there will be another new influx. Those that aren't technologically minded, those that aren't able to, wire up a laptop and a webcam and have a look. We need to be there for everyone. I'd never abandon my online congregation as much as I'd never abandon my local congregation. And so many people have benefited, but the way of life has benefited more than we could have ever possibly imagined. But it will be hard going in and because we have certain catchphrases at Littleport. At the end of the night, when we had a raffle, my mate Hannah, bless her, we gave her a bendy bully because we'd always do bully's special prize as the last of the raffle. We've included that, giving the raffle prizes out of those are the ones that get the message that night. She still comes on and does her bully special prize bit. And at the end of the night, we always say the kitchen's now open. Well, when I used to say that in the village hall, Dad would lift the shutter to the kitchen up and all of the cups and all of the sauces and all of the biscuits would all be laid out ready. The first time doing that in front of that shutter, I know is going to be diabolical for all of us. But we must, in the words of Churchill, KBO. I won't do a Lynn and tell you what that actually means. But it is what it is. We throughout the whole of history, spiritualism has been dealt a hand that it must learn to deal with. Right from the Fox sisters, all the way through to Emma Hardinge Britton, all the way up to Gordon Higginson, Doris Stokes. Helen Duncan was thrown a pretty nasty curveball that she had to deal with. Look at them that have gone before us. The pioneers of spiritualism are every single member of spiritualism because they're pioneering something new every single day. And we must have that kind of mindset to, just no matter what we get thrown, we know we've got spirit helping us out. We know we've got those people that we've physically lost behind us, watching us and willing us on every week. And, to actually be able to say that, it's an amazing thing to be able to even say that and know that we can say that. And I hope you're not hearing all of these pings because our meditation circles just started and everyone's joining on the messenger. So there's ping, 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 ping every Wednesday night. But I think everyone must remember that the pioneers gave us a route map. No matter what the world throws at you, you take it, you put a smile on it and you make it work for yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Spiritualism has always had a very strong history of being activists in women's movements and things like that.
Yeah.
And here we are, our generations now at this time, we have those opportunities in front of us. Before we finish, as we're drawing up to, I can't believe that's an hour gone. That's so amazing. Just thoughts of the future as we start to reopen. What I've found down here in Poole is a lot of our congregation has changed because a lot of the elderly are still, as I believe Ashley was talking about early on, it's all right putting things on, but people are still a little bit reluctant to go out, and fully get that. Absolutely fully get that. But we are seeing an upsurge in new people coming in because we've just gone through this period, or still in this period, where our own very mortality has been challenged and it's raised questions. I worked quite a lot in the church during the daytime, sat here pretending I'm typing, but I'm not. I'm actually listening to YouTube. But anyway, and people are just sort of like popping their head in and go, "Oh, hi. what do you do here? You know, and it's really interesting. It is so interesting. So, you know, just quickly go around, you know, like what would you like new to come into your church or place of worship or whatever it is? What would you like to see evolve now that probably wouldn't have or struggled a bit pre the COVID era? Anybody?
Community. Just keep building that wonderful community. And for a lot of older spiritualists in my congregation, they say it reminds them of an older time where the church was at the heart of their sort of community. And we've seen that a bit more now. Some of that's because we were all forced to slow down a little bit, you know, myself included. But I really want to make sure that there is this community feel, that friends are always welcome, and you know, new friends are encouraged. So the sense of not rushing and taking our time to do this, going, as my granddad used to say, only go as fast as the slowest ship in the fleet, and making sure that we're taking everyone with us in this sort of change, and they all feel as architect in what the future can offer, so that everyone that wants to have a role, that can play a part, can.
Brilliant. Yeah, love it. Donna, darling.
Yeah, just the same as that, really. I think this has taught us about that community spirit. And I would like to just to continue seeing these fresh faces. I love the old faces. They're brilliant. But there has been this influx of new interested people. No, I just mean people that were there before. But there has been a new influx, and people have had more time. They've kind of done more courses online or whatever, and you know, they're interested in, for example, like, you know, the crystals and stuff, you know. I think because there's been so much online and people have had time to stop, I know so many people that have taken courses they wouldn't have taken before or didn't have time to take, or just discovered us online. And they're like, wow, you do that? Oh, I didn't know you did that. Let me come and try that. So I'm hoping that continues and doesn't kind of stagnate. I hope that we can kind of keep things fresh and current, but also still hold the people that were involved before. So it's a careful balance we need to find. And I also hope that we continue to connect across the country like we have. You know, I've made so many new friends in the spiritual community that I would never have met before, and I hope that continues.
Very good, and I think that's a very important thing, because we have met, you know, pre-COVID, we were lucky if we met the people who ran the Spiritualist church down the road.
Yeah.
You know, it was that was just the way it was. But now we are all connecting here, and you know, if we get thoughts and ideas, and I've done it with Ashley, you've got somebody who is in the same energy, the same mindset as you, that you can actually go to now and ask a question, because you know, we all get it with our own churches, centres, whatever. There are aspects of running it where you just need somebody who will understand everything you're talking about. You know, from will understand what you're saying from your perspective. Yeah. And suddenly people are there to say, yeah, listen, you know, if you don't want to answer this, fine, but what do you think about XYZ? And you know that response is coming back from somebody who's on that same level, that same mindset, as in regards of how your place of worship operates. So yeah, really interesting. Reverend Nick.
Yeah.
Well, I absolutely, you know, agree with and back up everything that Ash and Donna have said. I think, you know, if you'd have asked me this a fortnight ago, it might have been very, very different, because I've got the 1,700 word rant out of my system that I somehow managed to pen between it all. But I as much as I do agree about the need for community, I think it needs to go further. Like Ash was mentioning, Veronica Jenkins, you know, one of the things that has made her project, her work, such a huge success is that it has been completely open to everyone. to all different, organizations, churches, whether it be Christian spiritualist or spiritualist, Muslim spiritualist, Jewish spiritualist, every organization is more than welcome and all equal. And I know she's pushing further with another project, because she's been chatting to me about that's going to be continuing and sustaining that, which is exactly what we need.
Yeah,
but
the
I think
directory.
The directory is absolutely stunning. Where would you have ever else found someone who could have the president of the Spiritualist National Union sitting in the same meeting as little Nick, Christian spiritualist minister from Littleport? She's an amazing worker for spirit, and that mindset needs to continue, because as much as our openness and our welcomeness is the best thing about our way of life, it does have with it certain risks. And the one concern and fear for me is that we must not forget who we are and what we do, and not change what we do for the sake of change to get bums on seats. Because I know financially it's going to be very, very difficult for a lot of churches, ourselves included. We're lucky we've been able to continue providing something, get a little bit on PayPal, but it's not like the regular, pound in the pocket every time they walk past mum, and get shaken a few times to get a few more. Every time there's a big shift in this way of life in the last 23 years that I've been involved in it, you tend to see people trying to change for the sake of change rather than moving with the times. We're trying to predict it and go further forward. And, sometimes that allows the opportunity for people to try and remove that we are a way of life and of spiritualists as a religion, try and remove the philosophy. People aren't interested in this, let's not have that. People don't want this, let's not have that. We are spiritualists. It is a way of life, it is a religion, whatever you want to call it, but we should never ever forget that and take what we know and we love to be of support and help to people. And yes, it's great that we're welcoming to everyone, but we need to welcome those people in whilst reminding them that, yes, there is fatherhood of God in the 7 principles. The amount of people that I've met that say they're spiritualists but don't believe in God or a divine source or divine energy, it can be a bit concerning, because you think this is the new generation coming through of running the churches, and where there's nothing wrong with that as an individual basis. The movement must be the thing that is protected the most. The community of that movement must be protected, and we must fight for what we believe in a peaceful and friendly way, whilst maintaining that openness. And, the successes that your churches respectively have had. I mean, Ash, the only thing I'll disagree with you tonight is that you said that Wimbledon's a beacon for people in London. You've got a bigger reach than that, mate. Trust me, because, right since my development, I was hearing about Wimbledon Spiritualist Church, and I referenced things you guys doing all the time, even though you'd never even heard of me,
I wonder if the wonderful Lynn had anything to do with that.
Partly. She might have had 1 or 2 words, but it's from other sources too. So
that's good. Thank you.
It's not just Lynn, although she has been a big influence on my life, as you might have noticed my inability to stop talking. But I think so long as we remember who we are, we will be fine. So long as we remember what matters the most about our way of life, change how we perceive it, maybe, but not change what we actually physically do, then I know that if this happens again in 100 years' time, they'll be digging out clips off of Facebook to say, this is what they did 100 years ago, and won't that be amazing? But I think so long as we remember who we are, we will not fail.
Yeah, I
Lovely.
couldn't agree more. One of the greatest things is everybody who has worked online have been spiritualists, yes, regardless of whichever branch of spiritualism that hasn't been pushed to the fore. You've seen very little of I am a XYZ spiritualist. People just say I'm a spiritualist. and got them on with the job, and it's been great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody. A very special night tonight because we are undergoing a few changes here with our timetable and our programming. This is the end of the midweek Lyceum Nights. These were brought in during the really heavy and awful lockdown that we've just gone through. You know, lockdown is one thing. Lockdown in the darkest, coldest months of the year is just something else. Superb evenings. The Lyceum Nights will be amalgamating with our spiritual nights now on a Saturday night. So it'll either be a spiritual night or a Lyceum night on spiritualism. There's a couple of reasons for this, because next week we start reopening physically here within the church for our services, back in person again. And the first Wednesday of each month now will be a healing service, as opposed to an evidential mediumship service. So, you know, and also these beautiful people who've just, you know, been so generous with their time. As we start coming out of the lockdowns, everybody's times are going to start, you know, being reduced slightly of when people are available. So to compensate for that, the amalgamation of the Wednesday night and the Saturday night, because, and that's fine, you know, I get it. We are just so indebted, and I know each and every one of us on here will join in with a huge thank you, you know, to people who have just given up their time. Take Donna, I did your church on Sunday night, and do you know what I needed?
You did a brilliant job, by the way. I watched it back.
Do you know what? I actually needed to do that service because of a couple of things that had happened prior to it. And when I came out of that service, my faith was restored.
Oh, wonderful.
And it really was. It was one of those services I went, right, yeah, I am on the right track, and they are wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of things coming up, lots of changes. But thank you, everybody. Everybody is supporting us.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you, Nick and Donna.
Thank you.
Lovely to meet you all. Yeah.
Hope to collaborate again.
Absolutely. We should.
Definitely.
In actual fact, I'll get my mother to get in touch with, you know, for mediumship and such like, because she's wanting to build a new list now, you see, and absolutely the other kind of spirits. You know, in actual fact, you know, if anybody watched the boat race, you can see my local pub. It was the finish line for the Cambridge-Oxford boat race this year. So you can see where it is if you come to Littleport, where you can have a drink at least. Socially distanced, of course.
Sounds good.
There's just so many people we want to meet up with. I need to get to America to see the lovely Joan. And actually, Joan, that might happen next year. So exciting. I've been invited.
Fabulous.
Anyway, Denmark, lovely Jack and Yvonne and Lola. And you know, I've got to do this world tour now. Yeah. But yeah, it's I'm just loving that we are all that little... Oh, hello.
I'll be coming over.
Hey?
Sorry, I've a way interrupting. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. No,
I was just saying that when you're on your road trip, I hope I'm not on my road trip at the same time, because I might get down to Poole and you're not there because you've come down to Thundersley. So we must talk. We must talk.
I think we should do what the old spiritualists do and have a Lyceum in the Albert Hall and just say to everybody,
absolutely,
we're there, get your backside down. Come on. No, it's central meeting point. You can't go wrong. Can't miss it. Well, you can. I could.
We'll have a word with Doris Stokes, see if she'll fill it again.
I reckon she would.
That'd be very impressive.
In actual fact, you remind me, it was actually... I saw a video of Gordon Higginson quoting Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the last service he went to. I believe it was Estelle Roberts in the Albert Hall. And he turned round and said to Estelle, carry on, take the word of spirit out into the world and never give an inch. And, you know, Gordon was able to say, we have. He would never have realised how literally that was taken this last year, taking it out into the world. You know, there's enough of us that communicate and talk now to be able to fill the Albert Hall easily. So come on, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm game. definitely.
Yes.
You know, I am no offence to anybody that organises weekends and weeks, etc. away, but why not? Why not just have one joyous celebration of spiritualism, regardless of whichever path that you follow. Whatever path you follow is fine for you. Whatever path I follow is fine for me, and we're quite happy with that. So
this is spiritualism coming to a dance to you.
Fabulous. I love it.
Yeah. Anyway,
what have you started, Laurie?
Yeah, I know.
Who's arranging? You're arranging, Lawrence.
No, you do it, Donna. You've got the gift of the gab. I just see you there. You know, schmoozing the hierarchy at the Albert Hall to get us a discount. Go on, girl.
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Thank you, everybody who's watched us tonight, and also all of those who will watch us on later. Oh, somebody's just put something in. This sparked a thought. There you go. We'll go and invade the Arthur Conan Doyle Centre in Edinburgh. How about that? No, it's too small. It's too small. No, we need the Albert Hall. No, that's it.
Yeah.
Marion Walls. Eh? Oh yeah.
Do both.
Spiritualists on Twitter. It's getting nuts now. Right. Before people start saying, where can I buy a ticket? Thank you all for giving up your time tonight. Thoroughly enjoyed it. So nice meeting you. And it's just so nice being that little bit closer together.
Yeah.
It really is. It's really heartwarming that none of us are out there on our own anymore.
Yeah,
brilliant.
It's lovely, isn't it? Lovely.
Definitely.
Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely evening, and we
Good night.
look forward to seeing you soon.
Good night,
God
folks.
bless.
Stay safe.
Mwah.
Be good.